Yes, hello to everyone. I welcome you all to this new daily news digest session. Today is 18th of January, and I have a couple of articles from both the Hindu and the Indian Express. I'm starting with the very first article that is from the Hindu. United Nations announces a campaign to counter surge in the anti-Semitism. What is this anti-Semitism? Why has United Nations announced a new plan to counter this rising surge? Please understand that the UN has announced new actions on 17th of January to counter the surge in anti-Semitism, including encouraging governments to enforce laws against hate crimes and discrimination. The UN basically was created in the aftermath of the Second World War. Holocaust in 6 million Jews were killed and has worked to counter anti-Semitism. But the 193-member global organization has been accused of being anti-Semitic, including by US President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for UN Ambassador, New York Republican Ellis Stefanik. She is pro-Israel and has called the UN a den of anti-Semitism that she intends to confront. The UN action plan to enhance monitoring and response to anti-Semitism is mainly about focused on strengthening and coordinating work through the United Nations, but it also includes recommendations for governments and organizations. Miguel Moratinos, the head of the UN Alliance of Civilizations, developed this plan basically, and he was said that he was alarmed at the surge in anti-Semitic incidents online and offline, citing attacks on synagogues. Synagogues basically are Jewish places of worship and religious sites, including after the October 7, 2023 attacks by Hamas and other militants in southern Israel, which resulted in the worst killing of Jews since Holocaust and set off the war in Gaza. Unfortunately, they said that our efforts like those of national governments have not been sufficient to curb the drivers of anti-Semitism. This Mr. Moratinos has also said new actors involved in social transformation, technology, science, and economy must be mobilized to address online and offline hate speech while upholding human rights. The UN plan also calls for the establishment of a working group to monitor and evaluate the impact of policies and measures to address anti-Semitism in the United Nations. It includes training for all UN personnel on anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial and how to fight them. Outside the UN, the plan encourages governments and organizations to denounce anti-Semitism swiftly and enhance education about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. It also encourages zero tolerance policies for anti-Semitism. Apart from this, the UN has also demonstrated its full commitment to its human rights mandate and take concrete steps that will lead to tangible process. So this is about this particular article. Let's try and solve a question on this and figure out whether we have understood this topic in detail. The United Nations announced new actions to counter the surge in anti-Semitism on January 17, 2025. Which of the following measures is not a part of the UN action plan to enhance monitoring and response to anti-Semitism? Not a part. First, encouraging governments to enforce laws against hate crimes and discrimination. This was there in the article, not the right answer. Establishing a working group to monitor and evaluate the impact of policies addressing anti-Semitism. This was also there. Providing military support to nations combating anti-Semitism. This was not there explicitly in the article. So C is the right answer. Training all UN personnel on anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. This is also correct. So this was the first article. Now let's move to the article from the Indian Express. I have two articles which need to be discussed from the Indian Express. The first one basically is Commerce Ministry's budget pitch and prioritizing MSMEs under rupees 3,000 crore interest equalization scheme. What is this about? Union budget is very much around the corner. It was going to be presented on 1st of February. And the Commerce and Industry Ministry has approached the Finance Ministry to seek an extension of the revamped rupees 3,000 crore interest equalization scheme. This is to prioritize focus on micro, small, and medium enterprises engaged in exports. The two ministries are in discussion to discuss the final contours of the scheme, which lapsed on December 31st of last year. Amid concerns raised in the Finance Ministry that most of the benefits of the interest equalization scheme were accruing to the bigger exporters, especially by non-MSMEs, both the ministries are looking to resolve the issue by not completely ending the scheme that would end up hurting the MSMEs. A tweaking in the scheme is going to provide a renewed support to MSMEs for exports, as MSMEs contribute approximately 45% to India's total exports. This data needs to be remembered by students. Apart from that, another aspect that needs to be remembered is exports had raised the demand for an extension of this scheme in their pre-budget consultation meetings with the government. Exporters want the scheme to be continued. An extension of the scheme would be crucial for exporters to get bank loans at a subsidized interest rate. Exporters have argued that rising inflation and logistical challenges due to Red Sea crisis are leading to a substantial jump in the requirement of export credit. Apart from this, export credit declined between March 2022 to March 2024, despite rising need for the same due to longer voyage time amid the Red Sea crisis. Because the Red Sea basically had a lot of turbulent times due to the Houthi conflict. According to the Federation of Indian Export Organizations, the value of export credit outstanding has come down to rupees 2,17,000 crore from rupees 2,27,000 crore in the previous year. The FIEO had also conveyed to the Finance Ministry that slow offtake of inventories with lesser purchasing power owing to higher inflation has led to liquidity challenges for the buyers. This has also resulted in demand for credit for longer durations. Another aspect that needs to be remembered here is, which has been mentioned in the article, is that the IAS scheme was announced in April of 2015, and it gives subsidies on interest provided on pre and post shipment export credit, varying between 3% and 5% to exporters. While the subsidy provided by the IAS is making exports competitive, in few cases it may be adding to the profitability of exporters who have better profit margins due to value addition. Apart from this, branding, etc. Since the IAS is addressing a disability of our economy, which is the high cost of credit, we have to look from the perspective of the majority of exporters. This needs to be remembered by students. Now let's figure out a question that had been asked, that can be potentially asked from this particular topic. The question is, consider the following statements regarding the interest equalization scheme. The scheme was first announced in April 2015 to provide subsidies on interest for export credit. This is correct. The revamped scheme is primarily aimed at supporting large exporters with substantial profit margins. This is not at all the case. It is aimed at supporting the small exporters. The second statement is wrong. We have already got the right answer now, 1, 3, and 4. Third is correct. MSMEs contribute approximately 45% to total exports, making them a key focus of the scheme. The current allocation under the IAS scheme is rupees 3,000 crore with a cap of rupees 50 lakh per MSME IEC holder. This statement is factual and is also correct. 1, 3, and 4 is the right answer. Now let's come to one more article, which is from history, ancient history point of view. The article basically is talking about the colossal Buddha head, giant palm that has been unearthed amid the ASI excavation in Ratnagiri. And what does this actually mean? Let's try and understand. In December, Archaeological Survey of India's superintendent archaeologist B.B. Garnayak and his team took up excavations of the 5th to 13th century Buddhist complex in Ratnagiri, in Odisha's Jaipur district. And this was done after a gap of 60 years. What was their aim? Their aim was twofold. First, to uncover more of the complex and to find material evidence of the states linked to the larger Southeast Asian culture. So far, what has been discovered? The mission has been partially successful because they have unearthed the colossal Buddha head, a massive palm, an ancient wall, and inscribed Buddhist relics, all of which are estimated to date back to 8th and 9th century AD. The Buddha head was 3 to 4 feet tall, and the palm was 5 feet. The richness can be imagined of this particular area due to this. The discoveries are significant, especially given Odisha's historic relationship with the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka, 304 to 232 BC. One of the Buddhism's greatest patrons, whose invasion of the kingdom of Kaling, the ancient name of Odisha, led him to embracing the religion. Located 100 km northeast of Bhubaneswar and part of the famous Diamond Triangle of Odisha, along with Udaygiri and Lalitgiri, Ratnagiri. These three are to be read in terms of the Diamond Triangle of Odisha: the Udaygiri Caves, the Ratnagiri, and Lalitgiri. This translated as the Hill of Jewels and was first documented as a historical site in 1905, important from Prelims point of view. The site stands on a hill between Virupa and Brahmani rivers and is Odisha's most famous and the most excavated Buddhist site. The last excavations were carried out between 1958 and 61, led by archaeologist Debala Mitra, who eventually became ASI's Director General. The efforts led to the discovery of many remains, including a brick stupa, 3 monastic complexes, and over hundreds of votive and commemorative stupas. The latest excavation aims at unearthing the partially visible structures and sculptures and to find out if any shrine complex or chaitya complex. What is a chaitya? Please remember, chaityas are prayer halls associated with Buddhism, which is a Buddhist assembly or prayer hall, as noticed in the neighboring sites, and to know the ceramic assemblage, which is a collection of poetry found on an archaeological site of the site, which has not been addressed in the earlier excavations. The effort is also to find evidence of the material culture, that is, the aspect of culture studied through physical objects and architecture of Southeast Asian origin or beyond, which has not been studied so far, and to understand the cultural framework of the colossal Buddha head from the site. These are the two objectives of this particular exercise. Odisha, Southeast Asia, and Buddhism. What are the linkages here? Odisha has had a very long maritime and trade link with Southeast Asian countries. And according to historians, pepper, cinnamon, cardamom, silk, camphor, gold, and jewelry were popular items of trade between the ancient kingdom of Kaling and Southeast Asia. The state also annually holds the Bali Yatra, literally meaning the voyage to Bali, a 7-day festival to commemorate the 2,000-year-old maritime and cultural links between Kalinga and Bali and other South and Southeast Asian regions such as Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Burma, and Ceylon. Please remember, this is an important factoid from prelims point of view. The Bali Yatra. Even though there are no evidences of Buddha visiting Odisha during his lifetime, Kalinga played a great role in popularizing Buddhism, especially in Southeast Asia, because of its trade link with the region. And experts believe that Tapasu and Bhalika, the two merchant brothers who became the first disciples of Lord Buddha, having their origins from Utkal, which is another name for ancient Odisha. These are all factoids for prelims exam. Mauryan Emperor Ashoka is believed to have invaded Kalinga in 261 BC, but deeply moved by the bloodshed in the war, he eventually embraced Buddhism, which he eventually helped spread not only to his own empire, but also to Sri Lanka and Central and Southeast Asia. In Odisha, Buddhism is stated to have particularly flourished under the Bhaumakar dynasty, which ruled parts of the state in between the 8th and 10th century. Ratnagiri also is a very important site because it is an ancient center of Buddhist learning, wherein we have seen evidences of Mahayana and Tantrayan, which is also known as Vajrayan, that involves mystical practices and concepts of Buddhism. However, with the ASI eventually shifting focus on sites such as Lalitgiri, with the oldest Buddhist monastery in the state was found, the Ratnagiri excavation was put on the back burner. The latest discoveries have shown how Odisha, home to over 100 ancient Buddhist sites, was once a place of great Buddhist learning. This shows that the Ratnagiri was once a key Buddhism center in ancient times. There are some studies that suggest that the renowned Chinese Buddhist monk and traveler Yun Sang, who visited Odisha during 638 to 639, might have visited Ratnagiri. The new excavations would shed light about the lifestyle, culture, religion, art, and architecture at different times, and also suggest where there were more ancient relics at the site. And the ASI also believes that if there is a need for further excavation, steps will be taken accordingly. So this is a very important article from prelims perspective, because the article is talking about the site of Ratnagiri and its deep association with the Buddhism. Now let's figure out a question from this particular topic and try solving it. The question is, consider the following statements regarding the Buddhist site of Ratnagiri in Odisha. First, Ratnagiri was a major center of Buddhist learning, rivaling Nalanda, especially between the 7th and 10th centuries. This is correct. The recent excavations at Ratnagiri aim to uncover links between Odisha and Southeast Asian culture. This is also correct. The Ratnagiri was first documented as a historical site in the 20th century. Yes, 1958. Last statement is saying Mauryan Emperor Ashoka established Ratnagiri as a Buddhist center after the Kalinga War. This was nowhere mentioned in the article exclusively and may or may not be correct. That is why we are not going to mark it correctly. The correct answer to this question is 1, 2, and 3 only. So this is all for today's Daily News Digest session. I hope this was a fruitful session for everybody. Thank you so much. We'll meet again.